So I get the pleasure of introducing Rebecca. I've worked with Rebecca way back when she had an honest living in Box Elder County, but working with economic development in Box Elder County a couple years ago. And then she abandoned Box Elder County and went south and took a job at the state working in rural development, right? And then this opportunity presented itself to, for work with state broadband, and she has taken that bull by the horns, so to speak. The federal government has poured a bunch of money into the project, and she has had the responsibility of trying to figure out how to allocate all those dollars. And it's been more than a full-time job. You have a good team and a bunch of people, and hopefully soon some of that money will actually get here. But without further ado, I'll introduce Rebecca, and she knows all there is to know about broadband and fiber.
And of what I don't know, these guys on the front row will fill in for me. So this is a niche market of attendees here in this sector of broadband, and I appreciate it. And it has been a couple of years. It's been 7, can you believe? Over 7 years that have been with the state now. And actually, when I went down there, the broadband center as it had existed was defunded. The legislature likes to do things like that. They don't want things to be going on and on forever, and they want things to kind of have a life of their own and take care of themselves. But broadband is in a unique in a unique realm. It's not a utility, so it unlike electricity or power or the water or anything else, there's not a specific, it's not regulated. So it's not with the Public Service Commission. And but the Broadband Center serves as a liaison between the internet service providers and the consumers. And this grant that we're going to talk about in a little bit is serving right to the household. It's serving right to the businesses. It's not necessarily just putting in that fiber infrastructure that's getting power lines, but it's going right to the home. So yes, I'm Rebecca Dilg, Utah Broadband Center, state of Utah, and I'm really happy to be here. So there's other components of broadband also, as well as the infrastructure. Oftentimes that's our focus, big focus here today, but there's some other aspects I want to introduce, and we'll actually finish up with that at the end. Infrastructure is kind of right there in the center, but alongside that, without a subscription that's affordable, or without devices, or without the literacy, without understanding how to use those devices, or having the technical support that may be needed to keep these devices working or keeping us online, or to have or for it to be safe. So we know, and probably have all had experience working online and being something compromised, or something can be jeopardized if we don't know how to use it safely, or even if we do use it safely, there are pretty sophisticated ways about that. So we're talking cybersecurity and such as this. But we think about our children, and we think about our senior citizens and those that maybe are not as experienced or not considered. And I'm a senior citizen too. I will say that, and I still have many things to learn. But we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to be able to participate fully in society as it is today. If you might realize, when's the last time you went to renew your driver's license? It's all online. Or your Social Security for your seniors, it's all online. So much of it, if you want to get tickets, to the sporting event or for Utah State or to the theater, it's all online. So to be able to fully participate, it's very important that we make sure everybody has the opportunity to access it. This is another little 101 about speeds. How much speed do we need? This is something I learned quickly when I was handed broadband along with rural development. They saw getting broadband to everybody, and especially in the rural areas, is important to economic development, as job development and business development. So to send an email, search Google, stream videos in high definition TV on a single device and stream music, we're good with 0 to 5 megabits per second. And this, I'm assuming, isn't a download speed. So you might be familiar with a download and upload. Download is what you're bringing down. You're watching a video that's coming down. But if you are in a video conference call and you are wanting to be seen, or you maybe are needing to share a video, or you're needing to share a map, and if you were at my house, because I do not have high-speed internet, it would take a while for it to load, and then it might show up, and then I might have to turn my picture off, my own video off, so that you could see what I wanted to share. 5 to 40 megabits per second download. And then it gets more and more and more as we add more devices running at the same time, or we're wanting to upload more or download more or play games or anyway, this is the range typically, and what we're shooting for is 100 megabits per second download, 20 upload. Not that you have to have it all day long, every day, but that's the goal. And that's what the FCC, Federal Communications Center, has determined that that is what's considered high-speed internet. So how does it look here in the state of Utah? Well, we have identified that there are, and I have to say approximately because this number seems to kind of vary depending upon, we'll have providers that say, oh no, we are serving those locations, but approximately 30,880 on or underserved households. So when I say unserved, unserved is anything less than 25 down, 3 up. And at my house, on a good day, I get 11 down and 1 up. I'm still on the digital, like, telephone line, basically. But underserved then is anything less than 100 down and 20 up. And you can see here across the state, these are the percentages that have of households and businesses that have at least 100 down and 20 up. You can see down here in the very rural areas, the smaller populated areas, San Juan is 61%, up in Daggett County is 43.7%. Logan is 95.4%. We talked about Rich in the meeting before, 93.2. Box Elder is 91.3. That kind of gives you an idea. And you think, well, gosh, 90%, that's pretty darn good. But if you think about it, and you're thinking in a classroom, that means in a classroom, there's probably at least one child doesn't have access. Now that number grows when we're talking about, can they actually afford it? Do they actually have the devices and such in their homes? I should also tell you that this 30,000 is based on, we have just over 1 million broadband serviceable locations across the state. So we have a pretty low number. In fact, Utah was announced by U.S. News and World Report this last year, and this is the 3rd year in a row that we've been identified as the #1 best state overall. So we're so proud of that. I think that's just great. And last year we were #2 in internet access, and this year they identified Utah as #1 overall in internet access. But broadbandnow.com said that we're number 16. So, oh well. You win some, you almost win some of others. Access to wired or fixed wireless broadband. Now, this is taken into context that we have the infrastructure, but then can people actually access that infrastructure? 92.7% statewide have access to wired or fixed. So I say wired, we're talking about like fiber optics, because that's a line you're running from point A to point B. And then fixed wireless is a tower. And fixed is there's a fixed device on your home that's receiving that wireless transmission. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. This means that roughly 1 in 10 Utah residents are not able to purchase an internet plan of at least 25 down, megabits per second down, 3 up. Access to wired low-priced broadband plan at $60 a month or less. Only 87.3% are able to get that. And then access to fiber optic service here in Utah is 55.9%, which you can look at it both ways. That's still pretty darn good, especially when you're considering the size that the state of Utah is and the cost for fiber optic, or especially our rural areas. It's more wireless that is covering these very remote areas. Again, broadband now. I put up here the internet availability by county. They say 91.2% have access to 100 megabits per second. And then I added rich, which is only 54.2%, and Box Elder's 88.9%. And again, this is taking into context the infrastructure as well as affordability and having the devices and just being able to overall access it. So this is from just a focus on Cache County, the broadband internet. These are from the American Community Survey, so the census stats. So of the percentage of households in the U.S. with a computer is 94.8%. In the state of Utah, we're above the average at 97.6%, and Cache County is even higher than the state average at 97.8%. But you did see a couple of those counties in there that had some pretty darn low numbers. With a broadband subscription, the percentage of households is the U.S. you can see, and Utah is higher than that, and Cache is almost there. There's a difference when we're talking about the American Community Surveys is a computer. What their definition of having a computer and broadband is not the same thing either. You can have internet but not have broadband, which is high-speed internet. Those that are age 65 or older with no computer in Cache County is 7.5%. Across the U.S. is 10%. So this is my famous pie, or it's becoming famous. I've shared this in a few of my presentations, but I baked this pie. I did not make it. I do make pies, but I didn't make this one, but I baked it. And I love cherry pie. And we had one little piece the night before, went to work, and guess what? All I could think about that day, it's like, always tastes better the second day. I got home and somebody had eaten out the center of the pie, leaving the crust and the overdone burnt part. So at least you might say the least desirable part of the pie. And I thought, okay, I'm still thinking about work. This is like work. Reminds me of internet. So this is what's happened across the state, is that because of the return on investment for internet service providers, they've cherry-picked, and this is a really good cherry-picked pie, but they've gone for those locations where they've got this really good return on investment. And those locations that are least desirable are the rural areas. And it's often mom and pops. It's sometimes just the small families that have bought the internet themselves that have gotten it started. So what the government has done, they're kind of providing an incentive to help us eat the rest of the pie, make sure everyone's served. So they're giving us a scoop of ice cream. And so we're going to have an a la mode with our pie. And this is called the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. It's a federally funded grant program that was introduced with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2022. So that's 3 years ago. It's been was announced, and we're just now finishing it up, I'm hoping. In Utah, we named ours the Broadband Infrastructure Grant. We had another one called Broadband Access. That was the bad grant. This one is our new one, Broadband Infrastructure Grant. So it's the big grant and was big dollars, $317 million allocated to the state of Utah to make sure we can get everybody online, that everyone has the opportunity, has availability of high-speed internet. So we call that universal service. So the grant was administered and we completed it finally. The first couple of years was spent doing planning, and we were visiting all the counties and finding out where their needs were. And then we had maps from the FCC, which weren't good. They were pretty inaccurate. There were locations that weren't accurate. It was satellite imagery and algorithms, and some of the locations that were actually barns and haystacks and rocks were identified as broadband serviceable locations. And so the counties and the internet service providers submitted challenges saying, well, we're already serving these locations, or these aren't locations. And so that took a good year to help clean up those maps. And we had to have our own map. And we had to share and have a challenge of our own to make sure all of these locations really either are or are not served. Didn't want to waste a single dime to any location and overbuild anything that did not need to be overbuilt, that somebody was already serving. So we ran our grant, started in February. We wrapped it up in April, but as you may know, we got a new president this last year. It feels like it's been years that he's been here, but it's not even been a full year yet. And they changed the way the program ran. And so they sent out a restructured policy in June 6th, and we basically had to stop, and we had to run our grant all over again. These guys are nodding their heads because they had to submit applications, do all the work, pay for all the whatever engineering, design work, budgets. This is what we're proposing for these areas and these locations. And we were pretty, adamant that you can't just cherry pick. Like if you're we had project areas and you have to serve every location in this project area, or you're going to have to let us know how it can be served and in what way. Well, they had to do it again, change the rules, change the technology priority. And then we had 90 days to rewrite the grant program, run the grant in a couple of weeks. And then that was followed by negotiations. And we spent a lot of weeks in negotiations. Far too many, it feels like. But this was some of it. We had wanted, and we still pushed, to have fiber optic as a priority technology. That's really the best technology. Get it in the ground. It's good for generations. You just change the networks on either end. Other technologies are not as good. And this is kind of my comparison. Here's our fiber optic line, and this down here is not legit. This was down in Bluff. I really caught my eye. It's an old cell phone booth, and it looks like it's been jerry-rigged with a little receiver to kind of extend whatever cellular service is in this little campground. So I thought that was kind of fun. But fiber optic is not the priority technology. The next round was called the benefit of the bargain because it suddenly went from what can we get the best technology here to the citizens and is long lasting to more of what's the cheapest? What's the cheapest way we can get this done? And then let's get this leftover money back to the federal government. And that's kind of how it felt like the program was pushed. But we still kept it open. And I think the applicants would probably agree that we still pushed for fiber, and we knew that other technologies would need to be used. So I described to you before, fixed wireless, there's a licensed, there's unlicensed, some are better, and then low Earth orbit satellite. I have there just satellite. It was low Earth orbit. So you've heard of Starlink, and they were a big applicant in our grant. So this was kind of the results of that. As you can see, it's the entire state. We had it broken up into census blocks. And within these census blocks, we combined many of them because there actually were over 8,000 census blocks that had at least one location that was not served, up to almost 1,100 locations. And so we created these project areas, and some were large and some were still relatively small. And then they applied for the entire project area and had to commit to that. After negotiations, what we found is that in order to please the federal government, they would not let us award any project areas over a certain amount of money. They just said, and each state, it was different. And so the state of Utah, it sounds high at $22,000 a location. It's pretty high. Most providers are not going to spend anywhere near that much serving a location. But in the state of Utah, I've known awards from federal government that have gone up to $200,000 per location. But granted, we're looking at growth. This isn't just a one and done. How is this going to help into the future? And so that was kind of the mindset. It's not just today. We're looking 20 years down the road or more. What we did is we combined the project areas so that none of them, taking the average, some were low, some were high, and we combined those into project areas that made it affordable, kept it underneath that amount. So this is just kind of a quick timeline. Actually, it wasn't quick. The first 3 years seemed pretty long, as I had explained earlier. And we get to this curve and it feels like a whip, because right there, that's when we had to run the really rapid grant round, redo everything. And then we did negotiations, and we had a special award, and then submissions to NTIA. And we are right now in the curing process and trying to get everything approved from them. This is the results up in, first I'm showing kind of the Box Elder cash rich area. This is on our website. I've got the address on the next slide, but it's connecting.utah.gov, and you're welcome to go there and learn a little bit more about the Broadband Center and what we do. So you can see that in the cache area, let's see if I'm any good with this laser. There we go. This is the Cache Valley area. So Comcast applied, Strata applied, Wi-Fiber applied, and I've got Comcast in there twice. So there's 2 Comcast project areas apparently in there. And then the other one down here is actually ended up a little bit lower. It's called, well, it's disappeared. It's Liberty. Oh, it's right down here. It's way down at the bottom, Northeast Liberty. So all of this green here is a provider, and it's Liberty. So their project area is Northeast. And then some of these are a little bit smaller in the cache area. So that's kind of a zoom in right into more of the Logan area. You can see here, I think we've got a little bit of Comcast over there. And this is Wi-Fiber. These guys are in the room right now. So these are potential. I have to let you know, these are provisional awards. Like, we're awarding them. You have to submit them to the National Telecommunications Information Administration, and they have to give the final approval. And right now, we're going back and forth and trying to get everything approved. Question? Did you have a question? Okay, you're just excited. Just like, yeah, there we are. That's us. Now, we do have maybe some other providers. There were some pieces that they didn't get awarded exactly what they wanted, so they might drop, and we don't know what the guidance on that yet is. But having said that, Starlink applied for everything across the state of Utah. Now, they didn't apply for everywhere in every state, but they did in the state of Utah. And those locations that don't get a provider then would have Starlink, would be their provider. And with that would come package. Basically, you wouldn't have to pay for the equipment, for the installation. I don't know if that will include installation. We've talked about that too. Like, how is grandma going to climb on top of her roof and get that equipment set up? So we're going to have to do some more negotiating. But then and they have also promised to have a lower cost per month for the consumer. So then what's next? We have 90 days right now for NTIA to review. So January 1, hopefully we can get our end done and they can get theirs, and we should be able to get that approved. But right now we're having to shave down any project costs. We've got some tribal areas that are quite expensive, and they are being rejected right now by NTIA, which is a little surprising, but they're saying, we need you to go back. We need you to sharpen your pencils. Can you get those prices down below that amount per location? And we're also having to make sure everybody is paying at least or contributing at least a 25% match. And then after approval, we have contracts and then shovels in the ground. And then we've got 4 years to complete. And then life after beat is, yay, we'll all be served. That's what they're hoping for. And then to wrap it up, I just wanted to circle back around to talk about, once the infrastructure's in, we need to remember the other side is narrowing that digital divide. So currently, 68% of Utahns do not have access to a home internet plan that costs $60 a month or less. In 2015, affordability was the second reason for not connecting. No need was number one. That has completely changed now. It's no longer a no need. It is a need, and affordability has now risen to the top. The biggest barrier is money. Internet access is not vital for people to have access to, like water and lights. It's secondary, not a primary need. That came from a Utah resident who can't afford it. And we know that it really is a primary need anymore. So, in our effort to narrow the digital divide, we had a digital access program. This was also funded by the federal government, and this was to support local digital skills programs, affordability, device access and training, and to collaborate and work with different entities and nonprofits and schools that are doing this. And unfortunately, that program got completely cut through the administration. But it's still important and it's still valuable. And so we're looking, to communities, to libraries, to the state agencies. What can we do to help support this and make sure that everyone still has the tools and skills they need to access? And I think I sped through that, but that's pretty much it. You might have a nice break. I'm happy to take any questions. It is an important part of the economy is broadband. And that's why I know that they handed that to me when I first came to work at the governor's office in economic development to take care of the broadband. It is opportunities to work from home. Telehealth was so important during COVID, and it still is today. I mean, I still have too long ago participated in a telehealth call. And whether it's physical or mental health or something like that, it's so important. And education, and just a big part of businesses. That's where a lot I know that businesses that even though you have a storefront, an online presence is invaluable. Question.
Just at one time, there was an estimate as to what value you got by connecting fiber to your house. Do you know what those current numbers are? I've heard as much as $7,000 appreciated value in your house. Just having digital, having
Say in real estate, that's not something that's considered when you do like appreciations or like appraisals. They don't account for that currently. I have not seen that. You do real estate. Have you ever seen someone paying more for the fiber connected to their home? No. I was like, I've never seen it.
You ever say when you walk away from it?
No.
Because of the
No, they
No.
never investigate first. It's always after they bought the home.
There's no internet.
Yeah, and I have had those phone calls.
There's a select where they buy. Most of them are, especially people that have transplants from other states, they just been dying for that countryside lifestyle. And they get into these homes and then it's what do we do?
Yeah.
How much does it cost to run a fiber 7 miles from the nearest interconnect?
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked. One of the other grants that we ran in Box Elder County, there were people that did not have fiber in their house at no cost. They didn't have to connect. They didn't have to do anything. They were connecting houses for no cost, and people would turn it down. And I don't understand the logic behind it.
The numbers I've heard in the industry is 2 to 7%, depending on if it's an edge out case. So if there's fiber infrastructure that exists nearby, and you're just say going from a road and you're going one street over, it's 2%. If you're building fiber into an area, it's up to 7% value appreciation on the home.
Yeah, and I know what you're referring to, and I think it's a little bit of fear. It's like, well, I don't need it. I don't want it. Do I really want them cutting across my lawn? Do I want them connecting something to my house? It's like this kind of an unknown and fear, and why do I need it down the road? And I know there were a few kids of their children that are shaking their heads like, I can't believe it, for free that they wouldn't connect, because that's they will affect the value of their home, or it's going to cost someone in later on. There's going to be an expense to connecting, when at the time the provider's there and putting it in for everybody else, it's going to be less. I did want to add one more thing, and I forgot, I wrote it on my hand. There are here in Cache County 1,775 households that we identified that are not connected or don't have high-speed internet.
Excuse me, might be totally ignorant. I didn't see Google Fiber as a provider. Is that
They didn't apply.
okay? I was like trying to understand that. There's no way.
They're just sliding money on fire.
Yeah. They're great, and they have just yep. Yep. In some regards, and they have reached out to me over the years and said, "Hey, are there any locations where other providers won't go? We're very interested in going into those locations." Great, great, yeah, yeah. And in fact, at my household, where I've been saying, "I don't have it there, I don't have it there." Um, I know all of these providers. If you ever have any issues, and you're not getting the service you're supposed to get, that's another thing. The Utah Broadband Center, we work like the Public Service Commission, even though it's not regulated. I can get past the customer service line. I know the people up here, and I'll call them and I'll say, they say that, you're serving this area and you're not. And they'll say, okay, we'll look into it. Happened to me, and I'll give them a shout out. I'm not connected yet because they just installed, but Comcast for years has been saying, "Oh yeah, we can serve your home." So the FCC had their challenge. I went to Comcast website. I typed in my address, and the screen came up. Oops, nope, we can't serve your location. So I submitted that to the FCC. My address came off as being served, and then they took note, and they came back a year or so later, and I got a notification, and they installed it like last month. They've come down. The challenge?
How long ago did you
Try. It's been about a year ago.
when I worked at my house in Smithfield, there was like 6 homes. We had it on one side of my house, and the other side had it, but we did not have it in the cul-de-sac for 2 years.
Yeah.
We have it now.
Okay, good.
So we had to go with satellite.
Until then, nothing. Yeah. And that's one thing that that's been my experience over the years, is that I've had people that will call me or email me and say, "I buy a golf course and all my neighbors have it." But Comcast says it's going to cost $10,000. I mean, that's how much it can cost to run a line to a home, and they can't do it and can't afford it. But with the BEAD, they did apply, Comcast did, but I also know that they have infused a lot of their own investment and getting a lot of locations ahead of BEAD. And a lot of providers have been doing that too, like Google and we call that other program Beat BEAD. Get there before BEAD.
Get all of the locations in Avon taken off.
Did they? Yeah. Yeah.
As part of the FCC V6 for the BDC.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you've got that all memorized. Yeah.
In front of his computer. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
from Utah that working.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
We appreciate that, and I'm excited that there was so much interest, because it would have been a failure had everybody said, "Well, we're not interested in dealing with the federal strings and reporting and requirements. There's going to be a lot." Did it?
Just half the people applied for round 1 didn't want to reapply for.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm glad that didn't happen to us. We had more applied, and they dropped their prices. The second round actually turned out fine for us. And I also have written on my hand, we ended up with fiber hopefully awarding. We'll see. We're still in this curing round, and NTIA is saying, you got to go back and you've got to justify these costs that are over this amount. But 53% is fiber, 26% is LEO, satellite, and then 21% is wireless. I heard some hands clapping next door. Does that mean we're done, or they were just excited about something?
From one speaker to the next.
Oh, then we're probably about halfway done. Any more questions? Yeah. Not in cash. No, they started to with our previous grant, and then when they didn't get that award, they pulled back, and everything that they had started that they were doing that direction, they took a different route. So that they're still down in Cedar, not Cedar City, but the Cedar Fort area. Oh yeah. Yeah, not up in Bear Lake, but they are down in the Fillmore area.
They're also, just my understanding, what's going through Logan Canyon right now as well. Yeah, correct.
Are they partnering with UDOT on that? Okay.
Problem that USDA, if you were the phone service provider and you had internet first, you couldn't apply for all right? Because they were already granted under USDA. So there was no impetus for them to apply quicker, so they were excluded.
Oh. No, the only locations that they couldn't apply for if there was already federal or state funding that went for a location. It was
But they weren't doing that.
right, but they still have a deadline out there to get it done, and they're still obligated. Yes, they still have to get it done. It didn't just come off the map. It's an enforceable commitment. If they were awarded USDA Reconnect grant funds, those will have to be completed.
So no. Being quite a sport going
Mm, that's a good question. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. They did apply, but they applied down in the Fillmore area. Okay. There may have been, as I looked at the map, I was looking at it yesterday, there were a lot of locations in the Bear Lake area that like they are already being served. That was one of the rules that changed with this new um, uh, administration is that unlicensed fixed wireless, if they could prove that they're serving with enough evidence, then we had to pull those locations off of the map. Yeah. So I think a lot of those became yeah, yeah, right.
10x every single center.
Yep.
4,000 permit versus 40,000.
Yes, that's what they said. Well, thank you very much. I'll give it back to you and give you some free time.